IVM.
Hi, welcome to a show about crypto with Rohan Joshi, presented by CoinSwitch Kuber, the global digital community. First things first, it's called a show about crypto, and you'd be well within your rights to be like, yeah, right, more like another show about crypto. What is the point of this thing? So I'd like to lay out what the goal of this show is for me personally. This is not an investment advice show, first of all. If anything, this is the show that I'm hoping you'd consult before you went to an investment advice platform, whether it's a blog or a different podcast or a YouTube channel, wherever. For me, what happens is I feel like this is a relatively new space, and there's a lot of information and a lot of jargon. And something that frustrates me about reading a lot of conventional news sources is that they presume that you already know what these words mean. The thing is that I want to learn what these terms mean because I don't know what these terms mean. So I figure why not record myself asking these conversations to people way smarter than me. And the hope is that over time, this show becomes like a reference kit or a glossary of terms. If you want to know what an NFT is or a blockchain is or proof of stake or proof of work, any of those things, the hope is to have episodes that eventually explain all of those things. But if you want to know something as basic as what a cryptocurrency is, we have an episode for that also. And what do you know? That is this episode, our first episode. So on that note, please let me welcome my first guest / person who knows way more than I do, Ashish Singhal, who is the CEO and founder of CoinSwitch Kuber. Hi, Ashish.
Hey, Rohan. Thanks for inviting me.
No, I mean, it's the pleasure and the honor is all mine because I'm the one that wants to learn here. And aside from being the CEO and founder of CoinSwitch, you've obviously been in this space for a while. I think you've won pretty much every major hackathon this country has had. So I'm going to tell you right now that everything I'm going to ask you over the next 20 minutes is above your pay grade. So with that, I'm going to start with the very basic. Ashish, what is a cryptocurrency? Like I'm 5 years old. What is a cryptocurrency?
Sure. So before explaining cryptocurrency, let's take a step back, right? Because every new thing in the world is trying to solve something. So unless we understand the problem, we cannot jump to the solution, right? So understanding the problem, say between you and me, say we met today, we don't have a trust established between us, right? And say, right. I want to give you something. I want to give you some money, right? I can't just give you the money because I don't trust you, right?
You're welcome to give me the money either way. I mean, I'm a nice guy. Yeah. I'll take your money. I'll happily take your money. I'm just saying.
Yes. But then I will be in a dilemma whether you will take my money and run away, right? So how to solve this problem, how the humans have evolved to solve this problem is by establishing trusted parties, third parties, which are today, say, banks, payment banks like Paytm, Ola Money, etc., where what they do is that, if I'm transferring money to someone and I do not know whether that person would actually, even after receiving the money, says, he hasn't received that money, what would I do about it? So these trusted parties now exist, whom we trust because they follow a set of rules which are laid out by the government, and everyone simply has to trust them rather than trusting each other on making these transactions happen, right? So if you were to transfer $100 to you, I will go to a bank and then bank will transfer you that $100, reduces money from my account and puts money in your account and gives me a transaction ID, which I now can showcase to anyone that I have paid Rohan, right? And I
can hear all the SMS notifications from that explanation. I can hear all the SMS notifications.
Yes, absolutely, right? So that is the proof that banks give you and me that this transaction has taken place, right?
Yes.
Now that solves the purpose because now you can trust banks which are regulated and can take up the ownership from you to them of establishing trust between any party, right? And this is true not just for money, but for anything, right? Say if I'm selling you a TV, right? So I have to give you a TV and then receive money for it. Now there are trusted parties like OLX and others who are establishing those trust between you and me without you and me knowing each other or establishing that trust between each other, right? But now that creates a problem as well. Now these entities have so much power that they can play with different rules with different people. they can cut me off financially from all financial ecosystems if they feel like it. Right.
But give me a less extreme example of that.
Sure.
Just cutting
Sure.
somebody off
Sure.
from the ecosystem that's a pretty big
That's
this thing, right?
I
Like
understand.
that's like an extinction level event. But
Yes. So let's
but
look at greed as an example, right? So
Right.
every banker is obviously run not just as a third party which is just establishing trust between two parties. They also have an incentive built into the ecosystem, right? Because you are now trusting them with your money. Now they can do X amount of things with your money. So let's
Right.
go back to the financial crisis which happened in 2008, where this greed actually resulted in trillions of dollars in loss, which ultimately, barreled down to the retail investors themselves, the taxpayers themselves, and ultimately they ended paying the price for the greed the banks had shown, right?
Fair.
And Bitcoin actually originated from that crisis itself. Looking at that crisis on how to solve this entire thing is how Bitcoin originated as well, right? So this was also an extreme example. It doesn't happen often, but there are very small examples as well, right? Say I go to a bank today, and Mukesh Ambani goes to a bank today. Obviously, based on our relationship with the bank and who he is, we would get different terms of a bank loan altogether, right?
Right.
So the system is built with trust, and with trust comes corruption, greed, and human emotions as well. These are not a set of rules that everybody is applying equally to everyone, right? So that's where the problem lies. Now, these rules can be manipulated in a way that if a bank or even a bank employee feels like changing the rules for someone, they are allowed to change the rules, right? And it's not fair to everyone who is part of this economy, right? And that's where cryptocurrencies evolved, solving that particular problem. That today, if you and I were to transact, we don't have to trust any third party. What we can do is we can build a system which is equal for all, and applying the same set of rules to you and me, making sure that we don't have to trust each other, but we have to trust the system. And these rules are public. These are written in code, so they are written in stone, which can be changed to some extent, but when it's changed, we both would be informed about them, and we both have to agree to those rules, right? So now these rules facilitates this transaction. So we are already aware what are the set of rules which would be applied whenever I am trying to do a transaction or you are trying to do a transaction with me, right?
So let's analogize that for a second. All right, there's you at one end and there's me at the other. What is the system between us? I want to, for now, let's call it, I have to send you 10 rupees for that chewing gum that you bought the other day. All right, let's start. Are we even, and in fact, I'll go one step further. Are we still even dealing in rupees? Are we still dealing in conventional fiat? Are we still linked to that in any way?
So in a sense, you are, because how you get into Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies, you ultimately convert the money that you have into Bitcoin. So you are somewhere linked to it, but once you are into the ecosystem, then you are not linked entirely on that, right? And we can discuss about whether this is a good currency or not, which, to be honest, I believe it's not reached that point that it could be used as a currency yet. And we can, it kind of built as a currency to solve the problem that we just described, but it evolved much, much beyond that today, right? So where it is today to how it was envisioned is very different. So the question is that, if you're doing a transfer, if I'm buying a chewing gum from you, how the transaction actually works, right? So in that case, say we both have Bitcoin accounts, and I hold Bitcoin and you have chewing gum, which I want, right? So what I'll do simply is get your address, get your identity on the Bitcoin blockchain, which belongs to you, the ownership belongs to you. Once I have that address, I will transfer that money, the Bitcoin, directly to you. In the background, what is happening is the blockchain is validating whether Ashish has this money, whether this address that he's sending to Rohan is valid or not, and then creating a ledger record. Ledger is like a book right? Where like Bari Khata, which we used to call
right.
back in the day, which is like, every entry that Ashish ne Rohan ko 10 rupees ada kiye, right? So that is getting written, but now that is getting validated through millions of, computers all over the world with the computing power and solving a mathematical problem. And once they solve that problem, and then they establish that, okay, Ashish has this money. Now Ashish has transferred this to Rohan. Money is deducted from Ashish's account, and the new balance is, whatever Ashish had minus the cost for the chewing gum. And Rohan has now received an equal money, which represent the value of the chewing gum, right? So this transaction is now recorded onto the system, which is irreversible.
So are you, in a sense, saying that literally every single person who is on a certain blockchain or in a certain ledger technically holds a record of every transaction ever made in that currency? So in the sense that technically everybody holds every transaction ever.
Yes.
Like,
so
or at least the record of every transaction ever, rather. Every single person at all. So today, even if you transfer chewing gum to me, literally every single person who is on the Bitcoin blockchain got a sort of change in their ledger that has reflected that Ashish paid this money, so you better give him his damn chewing gum.
Exactly. And
so it's basically like तू मेरे घर आया वो 10 रुपए देने, लेकिन वो 10 रुपए तूने पूरे मोहल्ले को बुलाया कि देखो तुम्हारे सामने मैं ये 10 रुपए दे रहा हूँ, सब लोग अपना फोन निकालो, सब लोग इसका रिकॉर्डिंग ले लो, क्लाउड पे डाल दो, ताकि ये तुम्हारे फोन से भी डिलीट करेगा तो कुछ नहीं हो जाएगा. और अब सबको पता है.
अमेजिंग एनालॉजी, राइट? एंड से कल आप बोलते हो कि यार आशीष ने तो मुझे पैसे दिए ही नहीं, तो मैं उन्हीं मोहल्ले वाले को बुलाऊंगा और उनसे बोलूंगा यार अगर 51% इसमें से अगर मैंने 100 लोगों को बुलाया था, and if 51 of them says that Ashish has given the money, then Rohan has to agree that Ashish has given the money to him, right? So that's the beauty of blockchain.
Fantastic. Right? Okay, so that's what it does, and that's how it's envisioned as a currency.
Yeah. Yes, and also one more thing, right, which people don't get. Say some people believe that, what will happen if I lose my computer, or if somebody else loses their computer and loses their entire ledger altogether, right? Now this ledger is replicated across millions of computers, right? So what you can do is just get a new copy, and the beauty of this copy is that any day that you have lost everything and you want to replicate, यार मुझे पता ही नहीं था मेरे पे कितना पैसा है, मैंने तो लास्ट बैलेंस देखा ही नहीं था, तो you just start from the blockchain, recompute everything, and you will arrive at the exact value what you should have. So it's a public.
So when you say start at the blockchain, give me an example. Like what would I go look at and start? Like I lost my computer. I have purchased a new computer. I don't know what I have. What am I doing? Like physically, what am I doing?
Sure. So from a user perspective, you don't have to understand the complexity. You simply download a new wallet. You recover your wallet. So every wallet has a private key, which is like your bank locker ka key. Now, instead of a physical key, it's like a phrase, code word that you have to enter in that wallet. You simply enter that. Now, what that wallet would be doing, I'm telling you that wallet would be going to blockchain, syncing blockchain, calculating your previous history, and arriving at the final balance and all the transaction that you have made from that wallet. Right? So it would know that, okay, Ashish started with 1 Bitcoin. He paid half a Bitcoin to Rohan for the chewing gum, and now he has 0.5 Bitcoin remaining with him, right? So it would have all the history. So nobody ever has to rely on a bank or go get a bank statement before they can prove that, oh, I have this money.
Would it be fair to say that it is, again, if I had to analogize it, it's like अगर मैं train में हूँ और मेरा wallet गिर गया, or like it's just fallen outside, it's literally like the guy next to me literally stands up and says, hey, no problem, I happen to have another copy of your wallet right here, so don't worry about it, and essentially hands you that wallet. But now we're talking specifically about loss. Now what happens, and this is where I want to come to possibly also the crypto part of it, is theft. Right? Loss and theft are very different things. On the one hand, there's, I lost my money, or I lost my wallet and I have no idea, or I lost my password to my net banking account, versus somebody got in there and took the money from me. And that's where I sort of want to also now understand the crypto part of it, the security layers, and how I protect my money.
Sure. So let's take a step back here as well, right? So अभी क्या होता है, आपके बैंक में पैसे पड़े हैं, उसकी security, who insures? Bank insures, right? Bank ensures that their databases are secure, nobody is able to manipulate कि यार आज रोहन पे $1,000 है और कल somebody changes the entry altogether, makes it zero, right? So bank take the ownership of that security today, right?
Sure.
You still the owner of the loss. You still have to protect your passwords, making sure that nobody gets into your system and transfer an illegitimate entry and creates an entry and say transfers money to Ashish from there, right? So but banks usually are the custodians of the security of the entire ecosystem itself, right? लेकिन उसका negative क्या है? You have to trust banks. For any transaction you were to make, you have to now go to a bank and say, please make this transaction for me, right? Now on blockchain, since you are taking that ownership from banks to yourself of creating trust between two parties directly, you have to take care of the security yourselves as well, right?
Sure.
So that's where this secret passphrase that I talked about, that is what is very important. So you need to secure that, and that is basically everything. That is like, you have a locker somewhere with which anyone can open if they have the secret key and take away everything that you own in that locker, right? It is similar to that. So you just have to secure that passphrase. And what happens is that as a user, as a normal user, you don't have to worry about it, because there are exchanges like us which provides you a custodian exchange, right? Which gives you that, we would be the bearer of the security for your account, and you simply have to, treat us like any other bank, right? Which is opposed to the blockchain system, but that also gives simplicity to the users to start with, that they can now trust somebody to start their journey, but over time they can learn these systems, values of these systems, and take the ownership back to them whenever they want.
Right. So theoretically, like they could logically, like everything that they've accrued on, say, your exchange or your platform, at some point when they feel comfortable enough with it, just move it to a wallet then that you have nothing to do with, and then they have complete ownership of it, and then they can do whatever they want. And that's how you buy a Tesla with Bitcoin.
Exactly.
Or as the popular sort of not myth, part of the mythology, of course, of cryptocurrency. So Ashish, so we've talked about what like a cryptocurrency is fundamentally, right? And on the one hand, like I can obviously, if I want to pick up some cryptocurrency, I can come to a market like yours, put down money, and then get the sort of equivalent at that exchange rate cryptocurrency, and be like, yeah, I now have a certain amount of Bitcoin, or I have a certain amount of Ethereum, or whatever. But there is also the more sort of, for want of a better word, straight to source version of getting these cryptocurrencies, right? Which is mining. So I'd like to understand what mining is sort of in general. And given that, I mean, it's probably the most popular example there. Like, let's use Bitcoin, for example, as a starting point. Yeah.
Sure. So, Rohan, mining is like a process through which a transaction gets added to the ledger that we talked about, right? Okay. So, taking your example from last time, where you said miners are basically people in the mohalla. Now, anyone cannot simply just join the mohalla. There is a process that he needs to take on to become part of your group, who would later validate or invalidate your transactions, right? Okay. So to join that process for Bitcoin per se, there is a set of tools that you need to set up on your computer, on wherever the GPU or the ASIC chips.
So let's say it's me on a standard MacBook or like mid-range Windows laptop. What happens?
So what happens now is globally there are hundreds of people, millions of people who are trying to mine Bitcoin, right? So they have computing power. So anyone who is contributing to mining any transaction on the blockchain, the power of their computers actually define how much value they bring to the table. So if you go with, say, a very old Windows laptop, you obviously can start mining there as well, but the power that you bring to the table is very small. So other people outpacing you in mining a transaction would be very, very high, right? So the chances of you finally solving a very complex mathematical problem, which would probably take a normal Windows probably 2-3 years to solve would be very limited, right? So, and in mining, it's all about finding the solution fastest. Because once you find a solution, then you pass that solution on to a lot of miners. They simply have to validate that transaction. Validating is nothing but, say, in a quadratic equation, putting the value of X and equating LHS and RHS, right? Making sure your answer is correct, right? So mining is all about being there first, having the most amount of power to solve that problem as quickly as possible. So the amount of power you have, the better chance you have in this process to actually be successfully able to mine and get reward from the blockchain for mining a transaction.
Right. Okay. And when you say setup, that means there'll be a specific sort of program or this thing that I'll have to get and then sort of get onto that, etc. Okay.
Yes. So basically, the process is very simple. That you're trying to get to a new node or adding an entry to the ledger now. So you first have to have the previous ledger available to you. Then you pick up some of the transaction from an unmined pool, try to pool them together, because in a one when you mine, there could be hundreds of transactions that could be merged together in that block. So you create a block and then you try to find that mathematical solution, which basically proves that whatever transactions you have chosen are correct and can become part of the blockchain. And then once you find that answer, you have to give it to the rest of the miners, asking them to approve that transaction. And if 51% of them says the solution that Rohan has found is correct, then they append it into their ledger as well. And that is how a chain starts to build up. And whenever any mining block added to the chain, you get reward for it for finding that solution.
Am I correct to say this? Please tell me if I'm wrong. As an analogy, this is basically, if you're that kid in class who can do everyone else's assignment, the amount of validation you get depends on how many people's assignments you can complete. And then what that gets passed on is in a way, is it kind of like that?
In a way, it is kind that, but a bit more quorum, bit more dependent on others, how other people are competing. So it's not just about solving that math problem correctly. It is also about solving that the fastest way possible, right?
Right.
So
got it.
So that is a new dimension that's get added whenever you're mining anything.
Got it. And you mentioned the node, and this is a word that I've seen and heard a lot. At what point and at what level of mining do we get to a node? What defines a node?
So node is basically the entire ledger transactions built into the ecosystem. So there could be a light node or a heavy node or a full node. Depends on what kind of miner you are, what kind of softwares you run. Which basically translates from where Bitcoin started. So instead of listening to Ashish and saying, okay, this is the latest entry of the ledger, you basically arrive there by doing all the hard work on syncing all the transactions, validating all the transactions, not actually mining those transactions, but validating that Ashish transferred $100 to Rohan transferred $50 back to Ashish. So now Ashish should have $50 and Rohan should have $50, right? So either somebody can tell you that okay, let's start at a point where Ashish and Rohan has $50, or you can start from the beginning and figure out where Ashish and Rohan are today, right? So
you start all the way from if Ashish has 5 lemons and Rohan has 0 lemons, and then Ashish gives Rohan 5 lemons. This is where you do work that out yourself, even though somewhere there is potentially that answer already existing. You go, I don't believe that answer. I want to independently verify these conclusions. Which now makes me an important part of the node, because I've independently verified this stuff. I've not just taken somebody else's word for it. What makes this node amazing is that I have done the work myself, which means you can come and look at it and be like, this is not just a copy of that. This has been independently arrived at and is verifiable.
Yes, exactly. Right. And there are light versions to it, full versions to it, where you start in a full version, you start from 0. In a light version, you start from any X point, which has been validated throughout. And you only take the metadata for anything that goes beyond that, right? So people can run different kind of nodes, and then any new entry to these nodes are basically the mine transactions, which gets added, and this node becomes bigger and bigger. This chain becomes bigger and bigger in size.
Right. Got it. Now I feel like I understand the concept of mining a little bit. Not something you recommend I do on this tiny computer then. On that note, I just want to say thank you so much for your time, Ashish. This has been very, very valuable for me, for sure. I feel like over the last several minutes of our conversation, I've learned a lot more than I knew before this conversation started. And I'm hoping that everybody who's listened to this is also feeling the same way. And so thank you. All right, that's it from us on the first episode of A Show About Crypto with me, Rohan Joshi, and my very, very expert guest, Mr. Ashish Singhal. Today, we talked about cryptocurrency in general and what it means to mine a cryptocurrency. In our next episode, I'm actually curious about what the blockchain actually is and what smart contracts on the blockchain mean. I will continue my conversation with Ashish about that. So join us for that.
Hey, everybody, let me tell you a little bit about what happened on the IVM Podcast Network this week. If you are a fan of the network, you should definitely check out Naan Curry. Sadaf and Archit were joined by Keshav Chaturvedi of the Tere Mere Raste podcast. They talk about travel and food and, how important food is when you're considering travel. It's a really, really interesting conversation. Do check that out. Let me give you another couple of quick hits to check out. On Storytellers and Storysellers, Vineet talks to Ashim Mathur from Dolby. On Smarter with Sid, Siddharth examines how Netflix is getting into e-commerce. Check out Misconduct with Raghavi and Nisha to learn about some of India's most famous criminals. And don't forget, do follow us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram to keep up with what's going on the network. And finally, I'd like to thank the sponsors of the network this week. They are what makes this possible. Thank you so much, Seat, Cred, Global Victoria, Bank of Baroda, Intuit, and Lenovo. We really do appreciate the support.
Namaskar, dear friends. My name is Ashish Vidyarthi. Life, as you know, is a journey. And you and I, travelers, how can we celebrate this travel? I have a podcast for you, Begin the Journey. I share stories and moments from my life. Do tune in every Monday and Thursday to listen to my podcast on the IVM Podcast website, app, or wherever you get your podcast from. Cheers.